Move to questions to Minister for the Economy. I call John Stewart. Minister.
Enterprise NI is a vital part of our entrepreneurial ecosystem. We are primarily a small business economy, and the work that Enterprise NI does to support small and micro businesses, including by delivering Go Succeed, is hugely important. Early in my tenure as Economy Minister, I met with the Chief Executive of Enterprise NI, Michael McQuillan, and the Chief Executive of Mollusk Enterprise Park, Emma Garrett. I have also appointed Conor Patterson, Chief Executive of Newry and Mourne Cooperative and Enterprise Agency, as one of my expert advisors. My officials and I continue to engage with Enterprise NI and the local Enterprise Agency network in relation to opportunities for entrepreneurs and small businesses right across the north.
Mr. Stewart.
For his answer and declare an interest as the chair of the all-party group on micro and small enterprise. You rightly point out, Minister, the great work that not only Enterprise NI do, but our local enterprise agencies right across the country helping new and existing entrepreneurs further their business. Sadly, time and time again, local enterprise agencies are telling me they just do not have the funding to meet the work that they want to do. What more can your department and also local government do to support them to continue the great work that they do?
Minister.
Well, I think firstly we have to recognise, as you said, the quality of the work that they do, the vital nature in terms of supporting startups and supporting our small and micro businesses to grow. So as part of the regional plan that I'll be announcing next week, Invest NI will have targets in relation to startup and targets in relation to growth, as well as targets in relation to FDI. So I think that will shift the balance somewhat in favour of that. I see Enterprise NI then playing an increasing role as we drive growth in that area, and we ensure that the local regional partnerships are very much focused on the businesses in their area and find that support for them to grow in the time ahead.
And thank the Minister for his questions or his answers so far. Minister, given the large number, as you've outlined, of small and micro-sized businesses here in the north, and particularly the entrepreneurial spirit, not to be parochial, in areas such as mine of Mid-Ulster, can you outline the role organisations such as these can play in addressing the regional inequalities?
Minister.
Well, I think areas like Mid-Ulster have a very strong manufacturing base, which is very well organised and has seen the power that collectively they can yield. I think it's an example for other areas where we can get a sector together, create that cluster, and we're encouraging the creation of clusters not just here but right across the island. I think that gives smaller and more medium-sized businesses more economic clout, more clout in terms of ensuring that skills pipelines are met, that they work with the provider of skills to make sure that the big challenge that we have for all of our businesses is to get sufficient people with sufficient skills. So the more areas are organised in that regard, then the more they can enhance what they're already doing, which is remarkable in many cases, given the size of this region and the size of our economy, that we have so many world leaders across different sectors. So I think that does lead to more regional balance, because it means that people come together in their own areas, they recognise their own strength, and I hope that the work we're doing in terms of regional balance and local regional partnerships will enhance that type of approach.
Kate Nicholl.
Thank you, Minister, for your answers so far. Can I ask what learning is being applied across the local enterprise agencies, particularly those in the same council areas?
Minister.
Well, as I say, I think it is a matter of trying to support the enterprise agencies to do the work that they do very well. There are a range of them right across the region. We've had the opportunity to meet with them individually and collectively. The balance, I think, will shift in the time ahead in terms of what Invest NI as the primary delivery arm for the department is doing in terms of setting targets around growth, setting targets around start-up. These are focuses that perhaps didn't get the attention that they deserved over many years. So I would see that as changing the balance and then changing the picture. If you allied that then, as I said, the local regional partnerships that we intend to set up, I think that puts a much greater emphasis right across all of the council areas on, some council areas are very strong in terms of economic development, some aren't so strong. What we want to do is trying to lift everybody up to a level where they're articulating their own needs and they have some support and resource to do that. So that is intended to be the approach. I intend to launch a statement on that next week, and I'll be very happy to give more detail in that regard then.
Cheryl Brownlee. Minister.
With regard to sustainable jobs, I have identified the creation of good jobs as one of my 4 priorities. To this end, we're focused on growing sectors that have the greatest potential to provide decent and secure employment for workers and their families. My department is also consulting on an employment bill which aims to improve the quality of jobs right across the board. In terms of skills development, I announced a new skills fund of £11.5 million in July. Community-based providers, as well as regional network of further education colleges and our higher educational institutions, are key to ensuring access and inclusion for everyone.
Brunley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for your answer. In terms of the Skill Up programme, this is a fantastic programme that is delivered throughout Northern Ireland. How is your department assessing this to ensure that there's a broad balance and that all people from different backgrounds, economic and social backgrounds, are being represented and benefiting from this programme?
Minister.
Well, I think in terms of the broad level of support we have for getting people into employment and trying to ensure that we have job opportunities right across the board for, as you say, all areas, but all sectors of people within that. We have a good network in terms of people who do, if you like, first level provision in the community. They're working very closely with all of the regional colleges, and we have a very strong regional college presence right across the north, and in turn they're looking at higher institutions, higher level education institutions. I think the department needs to ensure that we are working at all levels with people. So in the £11.5 million we announced in July, that was to go across a range of initiatives, all of which are aimed at trying to draw people who are economically inactive into the workforce. And they generally find they're people with caring responsibilities or people who have other issues in terms of education or health issues that are the people that most need support in order to find jobs. So we have to ensure that we're consistent in that approach, that those are the areas we're targeting, those are the types of people we're targeting, and we work with the community and voluntary sector, we work with the regional colleges who have a very strong regional presence to make sure that we're effective in what we do.
Alderman Gildernew.
Well, Margaret, Concordia, and thank the Minister for his answer and for his focus there on the issue around economic disadvantage as well as just necessarily strictly economic inactivity. But given the importance of supporting people with significant barriers to employment and the cross-cutting nature of that work, can the Minister outline what your department is doing collaboratively with other departments and how that fits into your economic vision?
Sir.
Yes, well, I mean, we are working with other departments on a number of issues. We're working with the Department of Education to make sure that careers advice for young people is consistent across schools. We're working with other departments to ensure that people who have special educational needs post-19 have access to training and employment. That's currently an area that needs policy really set in that regard. There is an inequality there. We're working with the Department of Communities, Department of Finance in relation to community wealth building, to pilot projects in Larne and in Derry. So it's making sure that there is collaboration across the departments, and I have to say there is very good cross-departmental work happening under this executive, and we're trying to ensure that the limited resources that we have stretch as far as we can possibly stretch them, and we make sure that we're doing actions which complement each other, not contradict each other.
Kelly Armstrong.
Minister, you have mentioned the community and voluntary sector, further education colleges and departments. We also know that Belfast City Council has been engaged in important and successful work to upskill and bring people into the workforce through their employment academy interventions. What engagement has the Minister had with councils and the Belfast City Council in this programme, and are there any plans to expand this model to other areas?
Minister.
Well, I met with Belfast City Council the other week with all of the group leaders and Chief Executive and a number of officials. We talked about the area of skills and we talked about the area of access to work in a range of areas. Belfast City Council are very good at what they do in this regard, and there is, I suppose, a model there which I would hope that other councils who perhaps haven't got the same resource but haven't had that opportunity to develop their economic side of the council policy in the way Belfast has done. And so I think there are good examples there that we can all work from and that other councils can work from. We want to ensure that partly through the regional balance post, the regional partnerships that we're bringing about, that Invest not only supports those, but they actually support councils and council officials to make sure that they're up to the level that we find in some councils. Some councils aren't just as engaged in that regard. We want to make sure all councils are acting on the economic policy levers that they have, and that they're very proactive in the areas that they think that need support, and some of that undoubtedly is in terms of skills, our skills academies, and making sure that we target people into certain sectors where there is employment available for them.
Justin McNulty.
Thank the Minister for his answers thus far. Minister, raising the skills profile is essential in combating poverty. What proportion of the new skills fund will be directed towards areas of higher deprivation?
Minister.
Well, you tend to find that the areas which have most economic inactivity, where we need to target most, are the areas of highest deprivation. You go from 25% overall economic inactivity, you get up to the northwest, in areas like that you're talking about 35-36% economic inactivity. So that's of course where the focus has to be. We are in a position where a lot of the skills money which the Department of Economy traditionally relied on was European funding, which has not been replaced. And so we've had to identify sources of funding to try and ensure we do provide money into skills and training support, which I did in July with £11.5 million of support. But we also have to ensure that we work closely with regional colleges, with community and voluntary sectors, with groups like Clanroy, who you'll be familiar with in our own area, who work to identify and support people who are economically inactive to try and bring them back towards the workspace, and to make sure that those groups, the colleges, those groups and the universities are all working collaboratively together to try and get the best possible impact. And that of course will apply most in the areas where these people reside, which tends to be areas of deprivation.
Questions 3 and 4 have been withdrawn. I call Nick Matheson.
Mr. Speaker, question 5, please.
Minister.
My department provides a range of support for students with learning difficulties or disabilities to transition and to participate in further education. However, I am aware that current provision is not meeting the needs of all of our young people. Therefore, I have commissioned a review from officials on the existing skills and training provision for young people with special educational needs, including legislative protections, with a view to providing advice and recommendations. The team has participated in a DE-led parent care stakeholder sessions, met representative organisations, met Alma White, who many of you will know I met in June as part of her campaign for her son Caleb, and is due to brief the all-party group on learning disability. This work will contribute to the Executive's commitment to support young people with special educational needs, as set out in the draft programme for government, hopefully underpinned by our transformation bid.
Danny Baker. That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his answer. There's much to welcome there. Would the Minister be able to give a view as to whether or not he feels that there is a gap in the legislative protection for young people with special educational needs who are moving out of the school system? We do seem to be lagging behind neighbouring jurisdictions in that regard.
Yes, I accept that, and that's why I have tasked officials to go off and do a piece of work on that. It's something, as a constituency representative, I've lobbied on over the years myself, and I think it's not acceptable that we have a responsibility for young people going through further and higher education and providing support on that, and yet people who have special education needs are effectively abandoned at the age of 19. So the piece of work I have tasked officials we're going off and doing will make recommendations whether there's legislative processes required or whether we can do improvement through other processes. But and we've also bid for the transformation funding for some money to support this. I know this mandate is short, and so I would be hopeful that we will be able to make some progress in that regard before this mandate's out. But certainly we want to get very quickly to a situation where we provide very practical supports for young people in those circumstances and make sure that that injustice is actually addressed.
Danny Baker.
And thank the Minister for his answers so far. Could I ask the Minister if he could elaborate on the bid for the Transformation Fund for improved special educational needs support?
Minister.
Well, there is a process going on at the moment in relation to Transformation Fund that the Department for Finance are running. We have bid for support. We presented a bid to the Interim Transformation Board panel last week, answered their detailed questions. I understand they will have a final feedback call with the Department of Finance tomorrow, I think, and that will include an indication as to next steps. So we are reassured that the panels recognise the significance of the issues we're committed to in doing what we can to improve the lives and opportunities for young people with special education needs and for their families as well.
Call Connie Egan. Minister.
I launched the consultation on the Good Jobs Employment Rights Bill on the 1st of July 2024. My officials and I have been engaging with stakeholders both before and during the consultation. I welcome the constructive engagement to date. The consultation covers 4 key aspects of a good job: terms of employment, pay and benefits, voice and representation, and work-life balance. Stakeholder responses to the consultation will help inform the content of my bill. I encourage everyone with an interest in this important issue to respond to the consultation before it closes on the 30th of September. I am especially keen to hear from workers and employers with personal experience of and views on how to address the issues covered by the document.
Ms Egan.
Thank you, Minister. As I'm sure you know, the Employment Act 2016 provides for the making of gender pay gap regulations and requires the publication of a gender pay strategy and action plan within 18 months. Will you commit to working with other colleagues to consider the introduction of these regulations alongside the Good Jobs Bill?
Well, we certainly are open to considering what needs to be. It's a very open-ended consultation without any predetermination. So if there are issues that people feel haven't been adequately addressed by the Department over time, need strengthened, may well need legislation, or needs strengthened in terms of the approach to the men, we're very happy to hear about that and to take action where that is possible and where it's required. So, as I say, the consultation closes on the 30th officially, but we're certainly been speaking to people pre-consultation, during it, and we will be speaking to people afterwards in order to chart out an approach in the time ahead. So we intentions to bring legislation here so hopefully by the end of next year, but if there are issues in particular that she wishes to raise, we're very happy to hear about them and see how they can be addressed.
Declan Kearney.
Minister, you touched on the conclusion of the review scheduled for 30th of September. Can you outline for us the extent to which workers, businesses, the trade union movement have been engaged in relation to maximising their participation, and give us some sense at this point in time as to the quality of the response that has been received?
Minister.
Well, we have had a series, as I say, the consultation on this began in effect before the consultation document was issued. This is the most substantial piece of employment legislation since the Good Friday Agreement. It's playing catch-up in a lot of areas, certainly in terms of protection for workers. So there has been a lot of proactive engagement to make sure that we have all of the issues that we need to address on the table. We met directly with trade unions, with representatives of employers and businesses from a variety of different sectors. We're meeting with various stakeholders to hear their views in the consultation. That's been a mixture of one-to-one meetings and large events attended by multiple stakeholders. And most recently, on Friday past, the Department hosted a conference with Dr Lisa Wilson and other experts in the field of employment relations from across Ireland and Britain. So it has been a very constructive engagement. Of course, people will come from different perspectives in terms of some of the issues, and that will be discussed out with them. But I have to say I'm very encouraged by the quality and the sort of constructive nature of the conversation to date, and we have had trade unions representatives and business organisations in the same room discussing out these issues, and I think that is going to be a benefit in the longer term when we enter into the legislative process and start to bring this bill through the Assembly.
Seamus Malone.
Minister, in the agricultural sector, employees and workers genuinely they do face different sets of challenges, and not alone cyclical throughout the seasons, but also daily in terms of the work that they do. Has there been engagement by your department with workers from those sectors, or that particular sector, in regard to the special challenges that they face and how they too can be accommodated within that bill?
Minister.
Well, at the heart of the bill is providing a minimum, if you like, threshold for protection of workers and workers' rights. So that will apply to all workers in whatever sector they are. There have been engagements with trade unions who represent a broad representation of workers. If the member feels there's a particular gap in terms of one particular sector, we can certainly check with the department to see was there specific engagement with agricultural workers, but if he senses there is a gap there, I'm very happy for department officials to engage them to see what particular issues that they are dealing with. But as I say, at its core, this is about a minimum standard of protection for workers in jobs, to make sure that those terms and conditions apply to people and that their rights are protected, and that's regardless of which sector they come from.
Jill Guy.
Question 7, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Maximising the opportunities associated with dual market access is key to growing our prosperity. Invest NI promotes the dual market access proposition through its networks of overseas offices in Europe and beyond. It has developed a European programme that will showcase the North as an investment destination. This programme includes a comprehensive online marketing campaign, a series of in-person events, the first of which I will personally attend in Germany in October. Further events are planned for the Netherlands and Belgium. Locally, I want to see our businesses take advantage of dual market access. Accordingly, my officials have initiated a forum with business representatives to co-design support and guidance to navigate this new regulatory environment and maximise our unique trading opportunities. Research has been published which identifies the particular sectors that stand to gain most from access to both markets.
Mrs. Guy.
Thank you. And thank you, Minister, for that. Just Northern Ireland's relatively strong economic performance has predominantly been in the services sector, although the manufacturing sector should benefit from dual market access. Can the Minister just give a more specific update on just what work has been done by Invest NI to sell the benefits of dual market access, including to potential investors in North America?
Yes, well, as the member may know, we just returned from North America. Haven't been there all last week, and it was a very frequent topic of discussion. Invest NI team out there have been presenting similar evidence in relation to what dual market access looks like and will mean. There is an interest there in what it means for companies. So I suppose they're on 3 levels. Geographically, we're looking at North America, we're looking at Europe, but we're also looking at our own Indigenous businesses, so they fully understand what the propositions are. And that's why that research was done, because as you say, services are very strong, but they may not necessarily benefit so much from dual market access, but we need to ensure that those sectors which stand the chance to benefit the most understand that, but then understand what the rules and regulations are and how they will benefit. And bear in mind, this was only really agreed at this finally about this time last year. It would be under implementation until 2025, so some of it is still evolving. But there is a significant interest, as I said, in North America. When we met people last week, it was a frequent topic of conversation. We had officials there who were able to give advice and guidance to people who are considering investment here, and that's the proposition we're bringing to Europe next month. Intend to go to a number of destinations in Europe and make sure that people fully understand that, because there continue to be, and she will understand as much as anybody, challenges from Brexit which are unwelcome, and there will continue to be challenges for our businesses as a consequence of Brexit, but where there is an advantage, that we have to make sure that we're in a position to take that.
Philip McGuigan.
Following on from the answers already given by the Minister, can I ask, does the recent HMRC trade data suggest that manufacturing exports are benefiting from dual market access?
Minister.
Yes, there have been a number of companies themselves who have been out saying that they have benefited from that specifically. The existing data available, it's difficult to measure exactly how it's impacting right across manufacturing. So there is no data on specific companies that are selling to both Britain and the EU to identify exactly how that's happened. But we certainly have had testimony from individuals indicating that they have seen great benefit from that. We have seen a small increase in the goods from the north exported to the EU over the last year, despite a very challenging business environment and cost of living crisis. GB goods exports to the EU fell by 9% over the same period. So I think that gives you some indication that there are benefits to be had there, and we need to make sure that our local Indigenous businesses are fully aware of how to take advantage of those benefits.
Philip Brett.
Minister back from his trade visit, and hope those representing North Belfast didn't cause him too much difficulty when he was out there. Just following on the question of dual market access, data published last week shows that manufacturing output is down by 1.1%, and that dual market access has to date not brought any benefit to the Northern Ireland economy. 33% growth is in the service sector, which is of course not covered by the protocol. So can the Minister assure this House that he will continue to focus also on building the European market, but also on the UK internal market, which continues to be the biggest market for companies for investment, but also export for here in Northern Ireland?
Minister.
Yes, access to both markets is the key to the dual market access benefit that will flow to us, and we will ensure that companies have as least barriers as possible in terms of east-west trade as well as north-south and into Europe trade. Our manufacturing companies are like the wider economy. They are facing challenges. The historically high inflation for raw materials, rising wage and energy bills, but the figures published on 12 September show an easing in production output rate of contraction, with an improvement in quarter 2 estimated 3.5% from 4.3% in quarter 1. So there is, the Ulster Bank reported in their Purchasing Managers Index report that the manufacturing sector had the highest level of growth and activity and new orders and the strongest level of optimism of any sector. So that points to an improving picture for manufacturing sectors, but I agree with them. We want to ensure that our companies can grow, export and trade as seamlessly as they can, both east and west, east-west and north-south. Mark Durgan.
Thank the Minister for his answers thus far. Minister, in terms of the McGee Task Force, could the Minister provide us with an update on the publication of its report?
Minister, I'm not sure what it's to do with dual market access, but nonetheless, the report was published last week, and I think that this is going to arise perhaps some further questions. But the report was published last week. It's an interim report. It identifies a number of challenges that need to be met in order to realise the ambition, and I'm sure we will get down to meeting those challenges in the near future.
Donny Donnelly. Sure.
Intertrade Ireland's budget reflects their operating need in line with their annual business plan. For 2024, Intertrade Ireland's budget is £15.4 million. The split is on a 1/3, 2/3 basis between my department and the Department for Enterprise, Trade and Employment. My department's contribution is £5.2 million and DETI's contribution is £10.2 million. It's worth noting that Intertrade Ireland can access additional funding, including from Shared Island Fund, where they will lead on women's entrepreneurship and clustering in partnership with Invest NI and Enterprise Ireland.
Mr Donnelly.
Thank you, the Minister, for his answer so far. Is the Minister satisfied that this budget is sufficient to match the uplift in pay elsewhere in the public sector, while enabling Intertrade Ireland to carry on and indeed to enhance existing projects?
Minister. Well, the consequence of the additional funding we did put in has raised the headcount, if you like, in Intertrade Ireland, I think from about 47 to 65, and they're currently recruiting for that. So that obviously covers the anticipated staff costs in relation to that. Sorry, not Invest in Intertrade. And that's at the request in order to meet the challenges. I mean, they were going to be a key component part of us ensuring that in response to the last question, that the advantages of dual market access are properly understood and properly advanced through businesses right across the island. They have other important programmes in terms of clustering, as I say, and women's entrepreneurship that were funded through the Shared Island Fund. But we wanted to make sure that they had the complement of staff that is needed to deliver the real challenges and the extent of the work that they will have in the time ahead. I would expect that when further business plans are developed, there may well be a request for additional resource to grow the staff there, but certainly they were under-resourced for some time. We've now got them back to a point where they have sufficient headcount for the immediate challenges, and we will now look to future plans and of course discuss them at North-South ministerial level with my counterpart in the South.
Elizabeth Gallison.
Last week we had the announcement about appointments to Intertrade UK. Can the Minister confirm that there is no money from his department currently going to this body, meaning by de facto it's a window dressing exercise to spare the blushes of his government partners in the DUP when they sold out on the union?
Minister. Well, I attended the first meeting of the East-West Council and there's no request for any resource from us. It's going to be, that body is going to be located within Whitehall and resourced from there. So there isn't in that regard a request for resources from us, so no question around that arises. Of course, we want to see as seamless as possible trade east to west and north to south and into Europe and into the rest of the world, and that's why we're being proactive in terms of marketing dual market access, to make sure that people understand that. I think that that will be of benefit to all our businesses. Of course, Brexit will continue to present challenges to us, unwanted challenges, but nonetheless, that's the decision that has been taken in Britain in relation to it. But we will continue to try and meet those as best we can.
Cathal Boylan. Could I ask the Minister if the Department will continue to fund Intertrade Ireland at their level of need?
Well, we have moved to fund them at the level of need. They hadn't been funded to that level for some time, and we've already moved to do that. I anticipate that as the level of business in association with the area they're working in grows, that might be required to be re-examined over the coming years. And certainly I am committed, and I know my counterpart in Dublin is committed to making sure that they have the resource they need to do the very vital job that we want them to do.
Move to topical questions. Call Sinead McLaughlin.
Minister, can I ask you about the Northern Ireland Audit Office report that was published last week? It was critical of your department's performance in achieving the strategic goals of the skills strategy. It stated that there was weaknesses in the governance arrangements and plans to support a coherent approach to developing skills in Northern Ireland. How do you plan to get skills development back on track to meet both the needs of the students, but also vitally for the needs of the economy?
Minister.
Yes, well, the member will be aware that was a report into performance a number of years back. Certainly since we came in, one of the first things we did was when we did secure additional funding in the department, the entirety of that was put into skills. That was £11.5 million. We are bringing forward a skills strategy, which we hope to have released in the coming weeks. And of course, it is a big area of challenge, as I'm sure she understands. Any of the businesses we meet from whatever sector, however large or small, the common challenge they all have is getting more people with more skills. So that's why we're working very closely with those first stage providers, the colleges, the universities, and community and voluntary organisations to make sure that we can get the best possible skills package needed where into where it's needed most. And so yes, of course there will be lessons in terms of that report. I want to make sure the department looks at the report, examines it and adopts whatever lessons are needed to be required from that, because that will assist us in trying to do the best we can for skills in the way forward.
Ms McLaughlin.
Your answer. And can you give the Chamber your assurance that the recommendations that are made will be reviewed, as you've said, with your department, but also acted upon within this mandate? There's real issues in relation to the actual IT system that is not working effectively. So our gathering of data and our measurements are a bit askew. So these are really fundamental so that we know the direction we're travelling in relation to skills.
Minister.
Yes, as I say, whatever lessons need to be learned from that, and if there are gaps that are identified in terms of how the department's calibrating its response to the skills challenge, then we certainly will do that, because we have been examining this since I came in. We've been proactive on it. We've secured more money for it. We're working with all of the groups involved in the provision of skills and educational training, and we want to make sure in the limited resources we have that whatever we have is delivering as well as it possibly can. So any lessons and gaps identified by the report, it certainly would be my intention to make sure that those are addressed.
Ciara Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I very much welcome the Minister and his colleagues for their leadership and their regular attendance in the city of Derry, supporting and enabling and working towards addressing regional imbalance. I would like to ask the Minister for the Economy for an update on the first report of the Ulster University Magee Task Force in relation to, and I know you were in the city there back on the 11th of September for the launch of it, so just for a further update on it, please.
Minister.
Well, the project at Magee, the expansion of the university, has been identified by anyone that we meet in Derry as the single largest catalyst in terms of economic growth, and the area needs economic growth. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So that's seen as the catalyst for delivering in relation to that. That's why I set up a task force, because what previously had been a statement in the NDNA agreement about a commitment to 10,000 places is now moved into a commitment in the programme for government, supported by all of the executive parties, for 10,000 places in Magee. What we need to do then is turn that into a plan, not just a statement of intent. And the first report that the task force has published, and I want to thank them publicly for their work in this regard, has identified a range of challenges that they see that need to be addressed in order to get them to that place. We will respond to that, as will other departments and agencies, north and south, and they hopefully will be in a position by the end of the year to release a much more detailed report which actually outline the steps that will be required to be taken, and of course then we will want to follow through in relation to delivering on that 10,000 places as we have all committed to.
Mrs. Ferguson.
Thank the Minister for his answers thus far. Given the need for significant capital investment, will the Magee expansion be reflected in the investment strategy?
Sure. Yes, I expect the proposition to be reflected in the investment strategy. The investment strategy will be released at some stage soon. We will certainly be making sure that the requirements that are anticipated for Magee and the expansion of Magee, it being an executive project as well as a commitment under a political agreement, will be met within that investment strategy.
Cathy Mason.
Can I ask the Minister for an update on his recent Chicago and Toronto trade mission?
Minister.
Well, we took, it was a very successful visit. We took 12 companies from right across the north, from all sectors, from all sizes as well. I think they, between them, over the course of the week, had about 100 engagements. We also, in terms of myself, my own team, Invest NI team, met with businesses, some of whom have invested here, some are considering investing here, to encourage them to do so and others to expand and to grow their businesses here. Again, very warm receptions. We had an opportunity to engage with tour operators and people in the tourism sector, both in Chicago and in Toronto, to encourage more visitors, because the visitors who come from the United States and Canada tend to be in the high spending, and they stay a longer time, they spend more money, particularly golf tourists. And we were encouraging growth in that regard. And we also had very useful engagements with the broad diaspora in both Chicago and Toronto, which again, a lot of enthusiastic support for seeing us being able to grow our economy, being able to create a more prosperous and equal society here. So all in all, it was a very successful outcome, and of course the businesses and the contacts that they have made will be followed up on in due course to make sure they turn into additional business.
Mrs. Mason.
And thanks for that answer. Minister, can I ask, was regional balance reflected in the businesses that made up that trade mission?
Mr. Yes, as I say, we had businesses from various sectors, various sizes, small businesses, larger businesses, but also from right across the region. And I have to say, every one of them reported very, very positive outcomes from their engagements, very optimistic. I had the opportunity to chat to them a number of times over the course of the week, and as I said, they all reflected a very positive outcome in relation to that, and are certainly very upbeat about the opportunity they have for doing more business the other side of the Atlantic.
Stuart Dixon.
Minister, you recently were involved in the publication of the Programme for Government, and that Programme for Government sets a goal of a globally competitive economy for Northern Ireland. How do you intend to meet that goal and target by the end of this mandate?
Minister. Well, I think we intend to do that by focusing, more strategic focus on a number of areas which I've outlined from the start in terms of good jobs and productivity. We have had stubbornly low productivity here, which I think is inhibiting our business. We want to encourage more businesses into export, because those involved in export tend to be more productive, more innovative. We want to create good jobs, so we're not simply about attracting jobs in for jobs' sake. We want to grow and improve the quality and the skills of our workforce and have better jobs, better paying jobs. And we have focused on a number of 7 areas where we think would be the most productive in terms of supporting that ambition to be a more globally competitive economy in places like fintech, advanced manufacturing, green tech, a number of areas that we will retain a focus. So it is about recognising that we have very limited resources, it is about prioritising those, and it's about ensuring that we work closely with business to achieve the best possible outcomes in relation to that.
Mr. Dixon.
Minister, when measuring success we need to understand how that measurement will be done. Can you tell the House today how you will be measuring the success by the end of this mandate of that global economy for Northern Ireland?
Minister.
Well, I'm conscious that the economy doesn't change overnight, and things like low-paid jobs, low productivity have been stubbornly with us for many, many years, and that won't change overnight. But I think in discussion with my own department, discussion with Invest NI, in discussion with many business organisations, large and small, that we want to create priorities for the economy and set it on the right strategic direction. And that's what we intend to do, the right trajectory in terms of growth. And so there are measurements in terms of, as I was referring to in previous answers, as to business growth, manufacturing growth. Certainly in terms of business optimism, that has been very strong over the course of this year, and that augurs well in terms of orders for manufacturing has grown. So there are day-to-day measurements that are charted by others, and certainly we would hope to see an improving picture, because that in turn will encourage more confidence, and more confidence encourages more investment. What I want to do by the end of this mandate is have this economy on the correct trajectory, and make sure that we're all pulling in the same direction in terms of economic growth.
Nick Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Northern Ireland Audit Office report on delivering the skills for Northern Ireland's future provided an estimate that 35% of vacancies here were attributable to the lack of skills, experience and qualifications. What is the Minister doing to close those skills gaps and fill vacancies?
Minister.
Yes, as I've said in response to previous questions, we're very conscious of the skills challenge, and from all sectors of our economy, from large businesses to very small business, everybody quotes the same issue. It's get people and skills. The biggest attraction when you go abroad for people coming to invest here are people and skills. That's our biggest assets, but we need to do more of it, and we need to assist, because there could be a stagnation in terms of our potential of economic growth if we can't get more people. Post-Brexit, we don't have access to foreign workers in the same regard as we had prior to that. But we also anyway had an obligation to try and meet that challenge of a large number of economically inactive people and get them back into the workforce. Some of that will be through things like the childcare scheme, which allows more people more affordable childcare and the opportunity to access employment or training and education opportunities. But of course we need to continue to press that. We don't have the resources that used to be in the Department of Economy for that, but we have allocated significant resources at the start of the summer. All of the additional money we put into skills, because it's the most crucial area, and we need others to work with us in that regard. So we need to make sure the colleges are working as efficiently as they can, the other skills providers are working as efficiently as they can across the sector with that, and businesses themselves are contributing to that, because they're the people who are asking us to create pools of workers that are available for employment, and they need to work with us in that regard. So there are challenges, undoubtedly, and if we had more resources we could do an awful lot more. But I think we are working very hard with all of the people who are in, actors that are in that sector, to try and make sure we get the best possible outcome.
Deborah Erskine.
Supplementary.
Right. So Nick Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You don't want me to get my supplementaries in today at all. Thank the Minister for his answer. Can the Minister detail how he will ensure that vacancies are going to be filled in the 7 sectors that you have identified as priority sectors for the Northern Ireland economy?
Minister.
Well, I think what we have to do is just continue trying to improve on what we're doing, to make sure that we make sure that we understand the needs of those sectors, and that's why in the larger companies can come forward with programmes which we've done, skills academies for many of them, and those have been very successful in getting people a guaranteed interview and a high proportion of them into jobs in that sector. We're encouraging smaller, because we are a small and medium enterprise economy, we're encouraging small and medium enterprises to come together and cluster, so we can provide skills academy for them to try and make sure that they have a pool of people from who they can interview and engage, hopefully, in the time ahead. So there are a range of measures that we can take to try and do that, as I say, and we want to fill the gaps that were identified in that report. Now we want to fill the gaps in terms of where we think there are deficiencies in the approach in doing what we're doing. But there's always challenge, because we don't have the resource. If we had much more resource, we could do much more in that area. But we will work closely with everyone we can to try and achieve that outcome.
Deborah Erskine.
Thank you, and I thank the Minister for his question or his answers so far. A total of nearly 11,500 children have been registered for the childcare subsidy scheme delivered by the Department of Education. Could the Minister detail what steps he has taken with Invest NI to deliver a scheme for childcare for childcare providers, with the $2 million allocated to his department in May 2024?
Minister.
Well, we're doing more in the area of further and higher education, so we can provide more childcare support to people who wish to take up, in certain circles, people who wish to take up educational opportunities, so we can provide support for them in that arena. Of course, Invest NI, we're working with the Department of Education in terms of that scheme that they're doing, because Invest NI have that business expertise which the department doesn't necessarily have, to bring as to how that would roll out through supporting childcare businesses and others, and providing a more subsidised form of childcare. So all of the departments are working closely together in trying. This is an executive priority to get the childcare scheme developed, where we have individual responsibility within our own department in areas like further and higher education, of our other skills provision, of offering assistance to people who want to come into that for childcare opportunities. That's where we will provide resource and money to make sure that people who want to come into education or skills provision have an opportunity to access more affordable or support, at least, for childcare provision.
That brings to a conclusion. Questions to the Minister for the Economy. Yes, point of order, Mr. Duggan.
Regarding Executive Office question time. Is it in order, Mr. Speaker, for a Minister to wash their hands of, or to try and